Hello, and welcome to Nightmare County. I'm your host, Rando M. Ghoul. Tonight's episode is going to be about one of the most influential horror movie directors of all time, Tobe Hooper. And today just happens to be his birthday. So happy birthday, Tobe Hooper. Tobe Hooper will forever be known for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Even though he made many other great films, Texas Chainsaw Massacre is the one film that will probably always define his career. It's not a bad thing. He did make one of the most terrifying horror movies ever made. And for that, he will forever be remembered. Tobe Hooper is immortal. And I'll never forget the first time that I saw the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I was 12 years old. And the impact it would have on me is monumental. I was at a friend's house and staying the night, and he had the storage building out back behind his house. So we went out there. We were trying to find something to do, and we go into the storage building, and we find all these VHS tapes in the clear plastic hard cases. None of the movies had the slip covers or anything to tell you what kind of movie it was. All we had was the VHS tape and the words on the tape telling us what was within it. We found so many movies. We found The Stuff, Rawhead Rex, which is a movie I would love to talk about at some point, Subspecies, and many more. But the one film that just caught our eye was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I'm not going to lie, it was because we lived in Texas. We thought, this is going to be so awesome. This is going to be epic. A movie that takes place in Texas and that proudly proclaims it on its cover. So we cannot wait. I mean, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Just that combination of words is just like, you're not going to beat it. Ever. Well, maybe. But to me, there's just no topping it. Especially when you're 12 years old. So we take all these VHS tapes. We run into the house. We throw them down. Fix these big bowls of cereal, and we pop down and we put in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and we were not prepared for what we're about to see. And I'm going to be honest with you, at the start of the movie, it was boring. Oh my God, we hated that intro. As I've gotten older, I love that intro because I know what it's building up to. But as a 12-year-old, that intro, oh man, you really could not stand Franklin at all. Well, so well acted, but man, the role of Franklin, I wanted him to die. Man, yeah, that you had all these. I mean, the other characters were cool, but man, Franklin you wanted them to push him out of the van because he was just annoying, so annoying. But yeah, I love that character now. It's awesome. But we were literally, and another reason why we thought it was so boring is because it was filmed like we were watching someone's home movie, a home video, and no one wants to watch someone else's home videos. It's just, they're not fun. I mean, you want to watch your own, but not someone else's. But anyways, we pushed through it, and I'm so glad we did because we're introduced to the role of the Hitchhiker, played by Ed Neal. Brilliantly played. And it was at this point that me and my friend were like, oh, this is getting crazy. And we were really not prepared for what part of the horror realm we were about to enter, because it was fixing to get gritty and ugly, and man, it was awesome. Anyways, we progressed through the movie, and I mean, and we just, it was just, I'm sorry, I'm lost for words. Even when I think back on it, it stops myself. So, as we're progressing to the movie, and we get to I'm not going to talk about too much of the movie. I'm going to try to keep it to certain specifics to where it does not give away anything. But we get to the part where Kirk enters the house. That scene alone, when someone enters the doorway, that terrified me. And then the body's convulsing, and then the slamming of that door. I had to shut the gates of hell, and we had a glimpse. And me and my friend, we were like, do we need to turn this off? We kept looking at each other like, man, if we felt like we were watching a porno film, like we were watching something we were not supposed to be watching, and we were going to get in trouble. But it terrified us, and we pushed through though. Man, we continued watching the rest of the movie until we got to the dinner scene. I mean, the hook before that, the dinner scene, and then it was just like, this is nuts. This movie's nuts. And then we get to the part where our character gets in a vehicle and starts getting away, and they're just laughing maniacally, and then the title credits roll through, and me and my friend just sat there quiet, like we didn't know what to say. We were shocked. We were like, it was like we had just been on a roller coaster ride, and someone had strapped us in. We could not get off. We had to sit through it, and we were so shaken by it, and it was just like, this was the most awesome thing that we'd ever experienced at that time. I mean, it terrified the crap out of us, but it was awesome at the same time. It was epic, and in a lot of, I think that goes to show the genius of Tobe Hooper. I mean, and everyone that was involved in the film. That it showed you what they all came together to make, and what it could do. I mean, it was like someone had grabbed a hold of my soul and was like, I'm fixing to take you somewhere where you don't want to go, and you got to dip your toes into the depths of hell in a way. And it was just like, this is nuts. But yeah, that movie right there was monumental to me, and it would push me to search for other horror films even more so. Like, and I had seen like Halloween before I'd seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and to me Halloween was scary. And I mean, I saw that when I was 10. I saw that when I was 10 years old, and that movie right there made me not want to have a babysitter, because I thought, you have a babysitter, there's this boogeyman or the shape that's going to find you, and he's going to kill you. He's going to kill everyone. So if I didn't have a babysitter, I didn't have to worry about someone trying to kill us. That was my, 10-year-old thinking at the time. But seeing Texas Chainsaw Massacre at the age of 12, I was like, it felt real. It felt genuine. I felt like this actually exists. Like, because I lived in Texas, I'm like, there are people like this somewhere in Texas that are doing these type of things. That's the way. It's the way it sets on you. And I'll never forget. 12 years old, and I'm telling people that I saw this film, and I'd have these older people tell me, yeah, Leatherface is real. And I'd be like, what? And they'd be like, yeah, Leatherface is real. Someone knows someone whose uncles, cousins, brothers, sisters, aunt, father, or whatever worked at the Huntsville State Prison, or some kind of prison, from my understanding, when you talk to other people, worked at the state prison, and Leatherface was there, and he was wearing his mask. And I'd be like, that terrified me at 12 years old. And then eventually you get older and you're like, that's stupid. No, like any prison's going to allow some kind of psycho to wear a mask the entire time. And then you come to find out that Leatherface was never real. But you will run into people to this day, who will sit there and they will tell you Leatherface is real, and they met him. I do my best not to argue with those people, because it's insane even to think that Leatherface was real. And if you look on the backstory, it's people in the age of the internet, you figure people would still have figured out that Leatherface was never real. But you'd be surprised that people will sit there and swear up and down that he's real and he's somewhere in Texas, locked in a prison. That's the power of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and its impact it's had on people's minds. I mean, we're talking about so many years have passed since this movie came out. It still has that impact on people in the way it can morph their mind and manipulate them. But anyways, I'm I mean, Texas Chainsaw Massacre was such a huge impact on me that, I mean, the first real horror icon that I ever got to meet was Gunnar Hansen. And I was 16 years old, and he was at the Horror Hotel in Beaumont, Texas. And it's during the Halloween season, and in the month of October. We went through the haunted hotel, the attraction, and everything. We come outside, and there's Gunnar Hansen. He's doing autographs. He's signing pictures and everything, taking pictures of people. So at that age, I mean, when I saw him, I was flabbergasted, because I was like, oh my God, that's the guy that played Leatherface. And getting to meet him was just awesome. And I got his autograph, and he took a picture with my girlfriend at the time. And it was one of the best experiences, and it made me an even bigger fan of horror films, and it made me want to meet horror movie actors and directors and such. The sad thing is, I never got to meet Tobe Hooper before he passed. I got to see him. He was at a Texas Frightmare weekend at one time, convention. He was at a convention at one time. I saw him, but there was a line, so I never got his autograph. It sucks, but I mean, that's what happens. But I did get to see him in person. I just didn't get to meet him. But Gunnar Hansen has always been, meeting the real Leatherface it's always been up there for me. And it was such a big influence on me as well, because he was such a cool guy. But yeah, all I got to say is thank you, Tobe Hooper. Thank you for getting a bunch of crazy people together to make a movie that would have such a huge impact on me and on the horror community, the genre altogether. Because I cannot see where horror movies would be without the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, because it felt real. The only other film that feels real or even close to Texas Chainsaw Massacre would be Last House on the Left by Wes Craven. Those two films, you watch those and you're like, someone just filmed someone murder people and they put it out there for us to see. That's how real they feel. I feel like both of them are like snuff films almost. Except the Texas Chainsaw Massacre horrified me even more, because you had this big, ginormous entity that could pick you up and throw you on a meat hook, cut you off with a chainsaw. Another thing about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is that there's no gore. There's hardly any blood. It's all in your mind. Your mind already does all the work for the movie, and it's so masterful. And it's one of the things that horror movies do today just cannot get across. But as I said, happy birthday, Tobe Hooper. Thank you for this wonderful, horrific, terrifying film that you made, and all the other films that you made. And yeah, it's awesome. I also want to thank my friend who has also passed, who helped me find this movie in his storage building back behind his house, Michael Simon Simmons. Because without you, I would probably never saw this movie until way later on in life, where it probably wouldn't have as big of an impact as it did when I was 12 years old. Thank you. Well, I hope you enjoyed tonight's episode of me just talking about my experience with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and the influence that Tobe Hooper has had on me and everything else. And if you can, subscribe and hit that like button. And if you want to, you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Nightmare County. And if you want to leave any kind of opinion, suggestions, or just talk about horror movies, or talk about all of Tobe Hooper's other horror films that he's made, I'd be more than willing to talk about them, because I just love talking about this stuff. And all I can say is don't be a stranger and tune in.